Hi, my name is Ali Bazi. Today, the question I researched was, to what extent do video games affect a person's social skills? The two stimulus material I used, the first one I used was Video Games and the Future of Learning by David Williamson Schaffer, who works in the Department of Educational Psychology. His claim in the stimulus was to argue that video games affect the learning of children in schooling and outside of school. The second stimulus article I used was Educational Games and Simulations by Margaret E. Gredler, who has a PhD in psychology and professor of educational psychology and research at the University of South Carolina. In her stimulus, she argued that video games can be used to help students in school and also improve their cognitive skills. Okay, and that, in regard to both those stimulus, is why I chose to what extent do video games affect a person's social skills. So the first perspective I chose was a social perspective. Okay, so many people think that video games cause students to become socially isolated and lose their social interactions. But David Williamson Schaffer in his stimulus, he mentioned multiplayer gameplay, which was he was explaining that in video games people actually become more interactive with the use of online chats and playing with their friends. And the common stereotypes in the gaming world are that, as stated by Isabella Granick, was that she quoted that the video gamers are usually inept nerds who are socially isolated from the rest of society. And the social debate for that was, the counter was that gamers are isolated from the rest of society. That's what I used as my counter. And the rebuttal was from the Entertainment Software Association. They did a study based on statistics, and they said that 70% of gamers were actually always playing with a friend, or they were online chatting, stuff like that. So that proved that they are socially interacting with each other. The second perspective I did was scientific, and the first lens that I chose was the power of decision making. Isabella Granick also talks about the power of decision making and how in video games you're obligated to choose whom to trust and whom to follow. So the power of decision making caused you to become more confident, which could improve your social development. And then also another lens I focused on was the domino effect that John Velez, who has a PhD in communications, referred to. The domino effect he was talking about was basically saying that if pro-social interactions are going on within online chats and online playing, then those same interactions would be replicated and passed on to other players. So most of which would improve their social development. Okay, and the debate going on in scientific was, the counter was that many people believe that there are many negative experiences in video game chats and online gaming. And Sandra L. Culver, professor of psychology, supports this counter. She doesn't believe that video games affect students in a positive way. The rebuttal to that was Jorge Pina, who specializes in computer-related communications, showed that pro-social interactions are actually helping students and improving the ways they communicate with each other, and that most of the online gaming experiences are positive and not negative. And the third perspective I chose was an educational perspective. And the first lens I focused on was how video games improve literacy. Justin Marquise, who has a PhD in instructional system technology, showed the relationship between video games and how they improve literacy and social development with the children. And then with video games improving literacy, the second lens I focused on was how literacy will improve the social skills. And Margaret E. Gredler, who has a PhD in psychology, talked about the relationship between literacy and social skills, and how if you're more fluent and you have a bigger use of vocabulary, you're more confident when you're interacting with other people, which will cause you to become more social. So the debate that I focused on was, the counter was that video games and literacy have no correlation. The rebuttal to that was Mark Pensky, who holds degrees from Harvard and Yale University, and he also wrote a book about this topic called Don't Bother Me, Mom, I'm Learning. Showed that students will benefit from video games by improving the literacy skills, and this also caused them to become more social in public and in society. The solution to my question, based on the three perspectives I chose, were that video games improve sociability. They help promote social development by giving the players to make their own decisions, which will boost their self-esteem, make them more confident. Then the third perspective was that video games can help establish better literacy skills that can be applied to their sociability skills. Then the limitations and implications. So based on the types of video games you're playing, it can be if it's a violent video game, it might not have the same effect that an action game or an academic game might have on the student. And if video games aren't going to be put to use, they can become like negatively viewed and they'll be put to like waste if you're not applying them to your life.